Hello everyone and welcome to Season 5, Episode 18 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. I'm your host Travis McNeil, and today we continue our countdown of the top 50 matches in NXT history with match number 33 on our list, which is the contest between Ricochet and the Velveteen Dream from the NXT TakeOver Chicago 2 event held on June 16th of 2018. So as I've mentioned in a previous video involving Velveteen Dream in this season, and I'm sure unfortunately we'll have to mention about other wrestlers as we go through this program that I do here. Velveteen Dream had allegations brought up against him during the speaking out movement. I've made the decision that with these videos, I will just look at the merits of the wrestling matches, not the competitors involved within them. It's your choice if you choose to continue to watch this video or not, but I certainly understand if you refrain from watching due to those reasons. When I post these videos on my social media channels, on Twitter or on Instagram, I will often tag the wrestlers in them. I will not do that with anybody that does not deserve any sort of recognition whatsoever, such as, the Velveteen Dream, because of those accusations. That said, though, if we talk about this match, already in this countdown, there was a match between Dream and Matt Riddle. And in that video, I talked about Velveteen Dream being this really interesting wrestler, and he was so compelling, and it's so disheartening to me that people have to be the way that they are, and he would essentially sabotage his wrestling career through his behaviors, because he was really interesting, and he brought all of these different elements to his matches and all of these small things that we'll talk about, through this video. But the thing that I really found so compelling about him as a performer is, he would be this person that would be so, outwardly, open and comfortable, with his sexuality, we'll say, with his gimmick and with his character. But as a wrestler, he would have all of these little insecurities. And I talked about this in the Riddle match where, he would try to kind of wrestle Matt Riddle's, MMA sort of style match, and it didn't work for him. He barely squeaked out with the win in that one. And a very similar story here with Ricochet a year prior, where Ricochet, came into NXT very hot, debuted in that big ladder match at TakeOver New Orleans to crown the first North American champion, a match that the Dream was also part of that maybe seemed like that was going to be his moment, where he'd win that title and move to the next level. And Dream felt slighted by Ricochet coming in with all of this buzz, from the independents and coming out of Lucha Underground and basically was like, you're not going to overshadow me. You're this high-flying indie wrestler, but, I'm better than you and I can do everything that you can do. I just choose not to show it because my interpretation of wrestling is, the big, larger-than-life characters. And when Velveteen Dream would wrestle, he had, that Macho Man Randy Savage influence and that Hulk Hogan influence and that, ravishing Rick Rude influence. That's what he saw as wrestling, not what Ricochet could do. And basically you looked at it as like anybody could be athletic and flip around, but, you need to be a wrestler and you need to exude that chemistry. And it made this really compelling natural feud between the two. And there was an awesome spot that they did that was really, really memorable on NXT TV, where Dream was like on the ramp and was kind of talking trash, and Ricochet does like a big like flip dive over the ropes and lands on his feet like directly in front of Dream for this stare down. That was super good and the most effective way of building up a match like this, to be certain. It was a great visual and something that I'll think about for a very long time. So Velveteen Dream with this match, though, he basically comes into it trying to play these head games with Ricochet. And Velveteen Dream, that's something that he would do through all of his matches. He would play these head games with the wrestlers. And he tries to do it with Ricochet here. And just as simple as when he comes out to make his entrance, he's wearing, a pair of tights that look identical to tights that Ricochet wore in Lucha Underground as Prince Puma. And it immediately establishes that head game of like, you're still that, little cat, I guess, right? Like you're still that, masked individual who's not, who's afraid to show his identity that's, in this C-level television show, and now you're in the dance and you're squaring off against me. And he also, has like the Hulk Hogan bandana and cut off shirt and everything like that. So it's this great amalgamation of, Dream's normal character showing that he's this, larger than life superstar, but doing that nod to get into the head of Ricochet. And they do that, through the opening of the match too, which I think is so great because they start with like this opening mat work. It's all very, a traditional wrestling match. Dream does something that's so little here, but like such great recognition for pro wrestling, where Ricochet has him in a head scissors and his bandana that he's wearing slips off. So, you get this typical spot during mat work where somebody will be in a head scissors, they'll slip off and they'll grab the side headlock. Well, Dream, because his bandana came off, he picked it up and he threw it at Ricochet, which allowed Ricochet to kind of get befuddled, and that allowed him to grab the headlock. And it was just something so little and so organic that like made perfect sense that, showed how I felt Velveteen Dream like really kind of got wrestling, a lot better than a lot of people do. And a lot of those, we'll say it like those guys on the independents kind of do. They might be more athletic, but they don't have those little nuances all the time. So Ricochet, he has this advantage in the early going, and Velveteen Dream, establishes that just by sheer size and power alone, he has a huge advantage over Ricochet, and he takes him down with a very early shoulder block to show that. But then this is where, Dream's game plan of playing these head games, but also this natural chip that he has on his shoulder of having to prove himself because of his insecurities, ultimately proved to be his downfall in this match, where if he just wrestled it, like how he would, how he feels that wrestling should be done with these big, boisterous power moves, he would have been successful and he probably would have won this match. So he gets this big shoulder block, but then he proceeds to try to do like a flying head scissors to show Ricochet up. And it doesn't look great. It's kind of sloppy, but Ricochet like resortes right out of it and then just starts flying all around. And it leads into him, doing the moonsault into that, Iron Man pose that he does. And Velveteen Dream at this point is so visibly frustrated, he slaps Ricochet. But Ricochet is the opposite end of the coin here, where he doesn't fall into the mind games of Dream. He slaps him back and then hits his own head scissors, which is so much better and cleaner than Velveteen's. Velveteen doesn't do a resorte out of it, right? He takes a back bump off of it. And it just shows, that Velveteen, he's coming in with these head games, but those head games are going to start to play up, to himself. And that's what will cost him the match. We get just big spots galore in this one. Ricochet goes for a springboard and kind of gets, pushed onto the top rope to the midsection. That's Dream's focus, that midsection and that back, throughout the whole contest. He hits a lot of big moves on it. Dream, there's a couple points where he tries to go into the Ricochet playbook with varying results. He hits, the kneeling kind of flip into the ring, and he hit that kind of okay. Velveteen Dream hits like an Air Jordan that was really impressive, right? That kick off the middle ropes into the flip dive to the floor. And when he hits that, like, okay, you showed you could do your flying, and he starts to slow the match down with a chin lock. And if he just continued with that, again, he probably would have been successful and won the match. But Ricochet, he's kind of smart here because he starts to up the game. And when he starts to fight back, he hits a tope, but he follows that up with a great, Fosbury flop, like a twisting moonsault to the floor. So when he hits that, he's again showing and one-upping what Dream has done, being like, yeah, okay, you proved you can fly a little bit, but no one does it better than me. This leads to Ricochet getting crotched, when he's on the top rope. Big spot where Velveteen Dream hits like a super Death Valley driver off the top. But again, where that game plan starts to go awry, rather than go for a cover or lay on with the big offense and try to win the match, Dream goes up top. And yes, the Purple Rainmaker, the flying elbow drop, is his finish. But again, there's also this piece of it of trying to prove to Ricochet that he can outfly him. So he goes up top and he falls victim to this same mistake that Ricochet just made, where he gets crotched on the top rope. Ricochet goes for a deadlift superplex, and Velveteen's able to counter it in the biggest spot of the match and hit a suplex off the ring apron, grabbing Ricochet down from the top rope to the floor, which was gnarly, and again shows that strength and that power advantage that Velveteen should have continued to concentrate on. There was a great moment that I really liked following that up, though, where both guys get in the ring and, kind of start to pull themselves up from their knees. And it looks like we're going to get, the stereotypical independent wrestling kind of strike exchange. And as Ricochet is about to unload with his first strike, Dream just blasts him with this rolling DVD that he uses for a great 2 count. And again, I loved that because Ricochet's going into that independent bag, and Velveteen Dream isn't that wrestler, despite the fact he's trying to prove that he is here. And again, it shows that if he just stuck to that, and I know I keep saying this, he probably would have won the match. But when that only got 2, what happens? He starts to play into the strike exchange a little bit, and he starts to lose that exchange, and he gets turned inside out with a clothesline. But he's able to rally and get a counter with that big, reverse leg sweep kind of hammerlock DDT move that he does. But then this is where the match reaches its apex of the story that it's trying to craft. So Velveteen hits his move, and at this point, he's so rattled by Ricochet that he hasn't been able to put him away, that Ricochet's outperformed him in all of the high flying, and that, he started to play into this match that Ricochet wants with, committing to that strike exchange, and the crowd is going wild for the match at this point, and they're chanting, this is awesome. The most stereotypical independent wrestling chant you can think of is the "this is awesome" chant. And as the crowd's chanting it, you can tell Dream has it completely in his head. And rather than go for the cover, he starts trash talking Ricochet, basically being like, "This isn't awesome, I'm awesome." And, he starts talking about how Ricochet belongs in a bingo hall and how he's a wrestling god. And, he mocks, the hot dog and a handshake kind of comment for independent wrestling. And while he's talking all of this trash, much like how he hit the rolling DVD out of nowhere at the start of the strike exchange, Ricochet grabs that move out of nowhere, blasts him with it, goes up top and hits an elbow himself for a great 2 count. Almost playing into that Velveteen Dream book of, you're going to, try to do my high flying and use my moves, I'm going to use yours. He goes for a 630, goes up top for the 630 to try to put Dream away, and Dream rolls out to the middle of the ring. And this causes hesitancy where Ricochet tries to, climb down the buckles, but decides he's going to commit to it and hits this just wild shooting star press halfway across the ring. But the extra time allowed Dream to get the knees up, and he covers for a 2 count, which was a great near fall and would have fit into the story of the match if Dream were to sneak away the victory, much like he did in the Matt Riddle match a year later. But instead, it wasn't to be on this night, and Ricochet would ultimately come up on top. And then rather than follow that up, by climbing the top rope that Ricochet is positioned perfectly under and hit the Purple Rainmaker, or lift him back up and hit the rolling DVD or the hammerlock DDT or any of these other big moves that he does, Velveteen Dream at this match is so rattled, is so in his own head, and so feels the need to prove himself that he can do what Ricochet just did and jump, halfway across the ring, that he decides that he's going to jump all the way across the ring. And he takes the time of going to the opposite side of the ring, climbing up the top rope, and going for the Purple Rainmaker to clear the distance of the ring. All of this time allows Ricochet to move out of the way. Velveteen crashes and burns. Of course, now is positioned perfectly under, the turnbuckles that he should have used to hit that move, and it allows Ricochet to climb up top, hit the 630, and put him away. The finish of this match was so clever. It was this beautiful bow on this, great compelling story that they told. And a match like this is so fun because, depending on what you look for in wrestling, if you watch it and you're just someone that likes athleticism and big moves and big spots, this has all of that in spades, like a Ricochet match would. But if you're someone, that looks for these other little things and these small nuances and these story details, there's so much packed into this match that you might feel is a little bit hidden, if you're not aware of the story coming into it and how Velveteen was, as a performer, that you might miss it, but it's all there, and it makes this an incredibly worthwhile match that blew me away watching it, again for this project. I liked it at the time, but I thought it was so much better now, just really analyzing it, for my notes and for the review and for the sake of this video. So this is a great contest. You can watch it, of course, on Peacock. If you're international, you can watch it on the WWE Network. You can subscribe to my channel here on YouTube so that you never miss a video. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Wrestling50. And please join me again tomorrow as we continue to count down Pro Wrestling's Top 50.